Hello, and welcome to this review of the British Isles tour. This is History of Science Tours. My name is Ken Rowley, and this is an overview of the trip that we are planning for 2021. History of Science Tours was started by Wade Neiwert and I. Wade Neiwert and I are both chemistry professors at Bethel University in St. Paul, Minnesota. We have been teaching study abroad courses with students for about the last 13 years. Wade developed a course called History of Science in Europe, which he's taught about a dozen times, and I've taught the course 3 times. I have also developed a study abroad course for Bethel students called Science and Technology in New Zealand. And so when we decided to develop this company for adults, as in non-university students, we thought we would carry some of the same principles over. What we're really interested in is not being just tourists, but being visitors, being present and learning more about the places where we go, where we visit, and trying to understand the significance of the places where we're at, understand about the people and the cultures, and learn about the connection to history, our place in history and our place in society. For 2021, our plan is to go to the British Isles at the end of May and through the first part of June. The plan is for 17 days in the British Isles, 4 days with the Paris add-on for people who choose to do that. We're going to meet as a group in Dublin on May the 28th, which is a Friday. We will end in London on June 13th, which is a Sunday. And for those doing the Paris add-on, that will be an additional 4 days. Overall, our plan is to be 1 to 3 nights in each location, except for Paris, we'll be 4 nights there. And typically we're staying in nice places, but not the highest end, not the 5-star locations. We will use a variety of transportation methods. If we can find anything beyond what we already have, we may include that too. We're looking at boat, bus, train, plane, underground, and typically we'll have on some occasions 2 scheduled activities a day. We will also have days that are completely flexible, where people can make choices to do what they want. Here's a map of where we're planning to go. We'll start in Dublin. We'll take a train up to Northern Ireland, Belfast. We'll fly to Edinburgh. We'll take a coach bus then down to the Lake District in England and on over to Wales. We'll spend time at 2 different locations in Wales. Take the coach bus to Oxford. We'll stay 2 nights there, and then we'll take a train to London. We will end the trip in London for those doing the traditional British Isles trip or the base trip, and then those doing the 4 additional days in Paris, we'll take the Eurostar train down there. So let's start in Dublin. This is where we will meet. We will meet at the Arlington Hotel. It is right on the Liffey River, which flows through Dublin. If you look at this map, there are just a few things that we can point out. The Trinity College is just across the river from where we'll be staying. It is an easy walk. And Trinity is where the Book of Kells is located, their famous library. It's something like 15 euros to tour the library and see the Book of Kells. The Book of Kells is one of the oldest intact manuscripts, and it's a very cool artistic and historical book. We're staying in a very good location. It's fairly central to a lot of things. Other things nearby, at the far left of this particular map, you can see on Bow Street, that is where the original Jameson distillery resides from about the 1700s. They don't distill there anymore, but they have a very nice tour of the building. The Guinness factory is further up the river Liffey to the left. And there are a number of other significant places that are easy to get to here. We'll be staying at the Arlington Hotel. It is right on the river, or right across the river, or across the street from the river. It's a very nice location. Breakfast is included here, as it is at most of our hotels. Here's a picture of the river, an evening shot. Dublin is a beautiful city, very walkable and very pleasant. Because Ireland and Dublin in particular have a very long storied history with beer and whiskey, the Brazen Head is a pub that dates back to about 1200. So here we have a pub that's been in continuous use for about the last 800 years. And that's something we're just not used to in the United States. After 2 nights in Dublin, we'll take a train from Connolly Station to Belfast. It's about a 2.5-hour trip. When we arrive in Belfast, we'll disembark at the Lanyon Place station, and we will either walk, or you're welcome to find your a cab or other transportation to the Flint Hotel. It's the star location on the map. A couple of other things on the map that you can see here. Belfast is an easily walkable city. It's not that big. It's on the River Lagan, and you'll notice that if you follow the River Lagan north or up on this particular map, on the right side you'll see the Titanic Belfast. This is the old Titanic shipyard. It's where it was built by the White Star Line over 100 years ago. And they have the Titanic Experience, which is a large museum. You'll see a photo of that in a minute. Right around the corner from where we're staying, you'll see the Crown, which is a saloon that has been, that's a historic saloon. The Crown was bombed many times during the Troubles. Right across the street from the Crown is the Europa Hotel, which was also bombed a number of times during the Troubles. The Troubles, the Catholic Protestant disagreement, how should we say it? There's still some tension there, but it was really a bit violent 20 to 30 to 40 years ago. So there are a number of things that we'll be doing here. Among the activities will be 3 nights in Belfast. We'll have passes for a hop-on, hop-off bus, and this bus tour will take you to many of the historic locations in the city, many of the tourist sites, and it also includes free admission to the Titanic Experience. Here's the Flint Hotel. It's an older building, but it's quite nice. We think that this will be a good location to be. And here's the Titanic Experience, the Titanic Museum. You'll notice it's got a very unique architecture. Each wing of the building is built to scale of the prow of the Titanic itself. So if you look at the front entrance, you see the people there. It gives you an idea of just how immense the Titanic was. After 3 nights in Belfast, we'll take a flight over to Edinburgh. It's about an hour flight, and so the trip includes airport transfers as well as the flight itself. And when we land in Edinburgh, we're going to be staying at the Inn Place. It's a hotel very close to the Royal Mile. So the Star is where our hotel is. It's on this relatively steep, winding street. The train station is on the north, and the Royal Mile is just to the south of it. The Royal Mile is a very long, gradual hill. The Palace of Holyrood House, which you see just to the right, is at the lower end of the Royal Mile. It's one of the royal palaces of the British Empire. And then the hill rises continuously to Edinburgh Castle, which is just to the left of the Star. That's about a mile long. There are some other locations on this map that are worth looking at. The Scottish National Portrait Gallery is a very a very nice museum. It's a very small but doable and very, very high quality art museum. Edinburgh is home to a number of very important historic figures, including the economist Adam Smith, philosopher David Hume, Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin, James Clerk Maxwell, the famous physicist, and William Wallace of Braveheart fame, and of course Sean Connery. Here's the Inn Place, a very old building where we'll be staying, but of course it's been nicely renovated, and it's in a great location. Here's a photo I took of Edinburgh Castle from a previous trip. This is looking up at it from the far end, from the far west side. This is a castle. This hill has been occupied for about 2,000 years. And the castle itself is about 1,000 years old. As what we're looking at now dates back to up to 800 years old. We'll spend 3 nights in Edinburgh. We're going to do a walking tour. There are other activities that we have planned. We also have a free day. Some of us are planning to go golfing at St. Andrews, and some are planning to go to national parks, and there are a variety of other options as well. So from Edinburgh, from the Inn Place, we're going to take a coach bus that will be our own private coach, and it will take us down through southern Scotland into northern England, and we're going to take some time in the Lake District. The Lake District National Park has historically been the place where people from England will go on vacation. It would be the equivalent of our going to the Rocky Mountains, let's say, or to Yosemite. The Lake District is incredibly scenic. It's where a lot of writers and poets in British history have found their inspiration. We're going to stop at Windermere on the way down to Grange-over-Sands. In Windermere, we're going to do a boat ride on the lake, and it's incredibly scenic. And then we're going to be staying at the Netherwood Hotel and Spa, which is in Grange-over-Sands. We're going to just kind of casually get there. This is about a 4-hour bus tour or coach trip. Up until now, we've stayed in relatively urban and in some cases pretty old areas. So Dublin, Belfast, and Edinburgh are cities, and Netherwood, or Grange-over-Sands, is a much more rural area. So this will be a nice change. And of course, they have some great amenities there at the Netherwood. We're only staying 1 night at the Netherwood because then we're moving on to Wales. From the Netherwood Hotel, we'll be taking our private coach down through Lancaster, in between Liverpool and Manchester, and then taking a sharp right turn into Wales, and we're going to go to the town of Carnarvon. Carnarvon is again a very old town. It is of strategic importance being on this inland waterway. And even though it's very small, it has great significance in British history. We'll be staying at the Black Boy Inn. The Black Boy Inn is over 500 years old. It has been a number of things during its time. It started as an inn. It has also been a brothel, it's been a convent, it's been a pub and restaurant, and now it's back to being an inn. It's a pub, restaurant, and it has rooms. So we'll be staying there. It's very historic, and it's inside the walls of the old city. It's just a couple of 100 yards from Carnarvon Castle, so we have a tour planned for Carnarvon Castle. So our trip includes admission to Carnarvon. Carnarvon was built in the late 1200s by Edward I. Edward I built a string of castles through Wales, and this is one of the most significant. This was the landmark castle that Edward I built in northern Wales, and really tried to make a statement to the Welsh. If you're interested in learning a bit more about it, there's a lot. It's one of the most significant castles in British history, and there is a Netflix series called Great British Castles, and Carnarvon is featured in season 1. From Carnarvon, we'll be 2 nights at the Black Boy Inn in Carnarvon, and then we're going to take a casual coach ride with our private bus through the mountains of Snowdonia, through northern Wales, and we'll wander our way over to Ruthin. We can decide if we want to stop anywhere along the way. It's a very scenic, it's very different, it's a beautiful country. I think you'll notice that northern Wales is very, very different from the rest of the British Isles. When I've been there before, this was the only place that I saw snow-capped mountains. And even Scotland didn't have snow at the time I was there before. So we're going to Ruthin, and Ruthin is a small town. There's not much there. Again, we're going to stay rural, and this time we're going to be staying overnight for 1 night at the Ruthin Castle Hotel and Spa. And this is the building, this is the Ruthin Castle. Not a very large castle, but it has been repurposed into rooms and a restaurant. We are only 1 night here at Ruthin Castle, but when we arrive, we're going to have a 3-course dinner that evening in their ballroom. This is a view of Ruthin, and as you, with the castle in the foreground, you can see that it's somewhere between 10 and 15 miles from the sea. And it's just this gradual decline. We're out of the mountains here, and it's just a beautiful part of northern Wales. From Ruthin, we'll take our private coach down to Oxford. And this will be somewhere like around a 3.5-hour drive. We are not planning on doing much stopping along the way, but when we arrive in Oxford, we're going to be staying at a place called the Buttery, which is right in the center of town. Oxford is not a large town, but it's not a small town either. Oxford is where they manufacture the Mini Cooper for BMW. The factory has been there for a very long time. And Oxford University is composed of a series of colleges. So you'll see a number of these colleges listed here. There's Merton, there's Magdalen, there's St. Catherine's. There are just about a couple dozen colleges that make up Oxford University. And we'll be staying right in the heart. We're very close, a very easy walking distance to the Covered Market and a number of other famous sites. Here's a picture of the Buttery, which is right on High Street in Oxford. A decent place, a great view of the university right across the street. If any of you have seen the British detective shows Inspector Morse or Inspector Lewis, it's set in Oxford, and you can see some of the historic buildings, the spires. Oxford University is one of the very oldest universities in the world. It's over 800 years old. It's 8 years older than Cambridge University, which they take as a point of pride. And a lot of spires. The architecture is pretty phenomenal. After 2 nights in Oxford, we'll take a train to London. And it's about an 1.5-hour train, and we'll take it from Oxford to Paddington Station. Paddington Station is actually a historic landmark in its own right. It is very well preserved and very cool. And from Paddington Station, we'll take the London Underground. The Underground is their subway, which they also call the Tube. And in London, we are going to take the Tube to the Club Quarters Hotel, Lincoln's Inn Fields, which is where the star is on this map. Where we're staying in London is very convenient from a location perspective. Covent Garden is very close by. It is a cultural hotspot. They have plenty of entertainment, restaurants. It is very close to the West End, which is Leicester Square, which is where they have over 40 theaters. And if you've not seen a play in London, it's a really great option, fairly reasonably priced, and they have incredible shows. We're staying very close to the Thames River, so just south of where we're staying, you can see the Eye on the opposite side of the river. A little further down on the left side of the river is the Embankment, where you have Big Ben and Parliament and Westminster. If you look left or west, you've got Hyde Park. And if you go right, you'll eventually come, not too far away is St. Paul's Cathedral, which is from the 1600s, designed by Christopher Wren. Further east, you have the Tower of London, the Tower Bridge, and it's just a great location. It's easy to get around by tube, and it's also easy to get around by black cab. This is our lodging in London, the Club Quarters Hotel. It's more of a business hotel as opposed to an intimate, cozy place. But we chose this place primarily because of its location. Very convenient, very comfortable, we think, very nice. And our plan is to spend 2 nights here at the Club Quarters. So this is really where the trip ends, in London. For those of you who are ending your trip in London, there is a tremendous amount you can see and do. In this particular image in the foreground on the right, you see Westminster Cathedral or Westminster Abbey, the Anglican Church. If you have a chance to visit an evensong or a service, it's well worth your time. Just behind it is Parliament with Big Ben on the corner of it. Then just across the river you have the London Eye. Way in the back you've got some skyscrapers. The large spire just to the right of Big Ben is called the Shard. It's a modern office building. And if you look at the cranes, yeah, there's a lot of construction going on. London is a very vibrant city. So if you end here, you may want to choose to spend a couple more days wandering around, or a few more days. There is no shortage of things to see and do in London. But the rest of us are going on to Paris. We're taking the Eurostar train from St. Pancras down to Gare du Nord in Paris. The Eurostar is a high-speed train. It takes the Channel underneath the English Channel and then through the French countryside. Once we arrive in Paris, if you look at this particular map, this is zoomed out just a bit. If you notice that the river that goes through Paris, the Seine River, it's a little bit like the Thames in that it follows about the same path, it comes from the south, makes a loop, a north loop, and then goes back south again as you head east. To the far left of this map is Versailles. The Palace at Versailles is there. Among the activities that we have planned for Paris, since we'll be there for 4 nights, we'll have a Paris Museum Pass that's built into the cost of the trip. And this Paris Museum Pass will get you into pretty much all of the major museums that you might want to visit. That includes the Louvre, the Palace at Versailles, the Orsay, l'Orangerie. There are a number of other museums that are accessible through the Paris Museum Pass, including the Arc de Triomphe. A little bit closer up shot of where we're staying in Paris. We're staying in the Latin Quarter and where the Red Star is located. If you look just to the right and a little bit up on Isle de la Cité, you have the Cathedral of Notre Dame. I haven't seen it since the fire, but it will be interesting to see what it looks like. Notice that on the same aisle is Sainte-Chapelle, which is a historic, it's been a jail at different times, it's been a chapel, a church. Just to the north, across the river, is the Louvre, the museum. And the Louvre is enormous. Right across from it is the Tuileries Garden, that very large garden just to the east of the Louvre. If you continue following the Champs-Élysées out to the upper left, you'll see it goes to the Arc de Triomphe. And if you go south from there, you'll end up at the Eiffel Tower, which is right on the Seine River. So all of these sites are easily accessible by the Paris Metro, which is the subway. The RER trains go out to Versailles. It's a fairly short ride. It's maybe a 20-minute, 25-minute ride out to Versailles and back. But there is a lot to see and do right here. There are tons of amazing restaurants around this area, and there's an awful lot to do. We'll be staying at the Grand Hotel des Balcons, which you can see has just a few balconies on the rooms. It's a nice place. Again, not 5-star, but it's not a bad hotel at all. Here's a picture of the Louvre, the famous architecture, the ancient with the modern. The Louvre itself has foundations that like many other places in Europe are about 2,000 years old. The foundations for the Louvre, for the modern building, date from about 800 AD. And for about the last 800 years, it has been in relatively continuous use as it's been built up and added on to over time. This is the front of the Palace at Versailles. That is gold around the roof and some of the upper windows. That is real gold. And it is an incredible place. The gardens, which are behind it, are absolutely stunning. And if you look straight through those main doors, kind of beyond on the back side, you'll find the Hall of Mirrors. We'll be leaving from Paris. So for the group goals, we're looking for people who have a passion to get out and do things, to see what's there, and perhaps at the end of the day, reconvene with parts of the group and share about what these experiences have been. With every trip I've ever taken, and I've taken over 20 trips to Europe, there are always things that will happen, things that are unexpected, glitches that arise. For whatever reason, a flexible group mentality is really important. And being able to kind of say, oh, all right, well, if that's the way it is, we'll roll with it and we'll keep moving forward. One of the things that is really important for traveling as a group is a sense of a group responsibility. And where this really becomes important is if we're going to take a train or if we're going to get on the coach bus, we need people who are there on time. It's respectful for the group, and it's important that we are aware that our actions affect those of others. Not all the time, but much of the time, at least as far as some of the timing things that really matters. So here's what's included. Once we're there, all group transportation, which means when we're moving around, if we have a tour, if we have, or going to a different city, if we're going to take the plane, it includes airport transfers. If we're going to, it includes a London tube pass. So all of the transportation is included. Most breakfasts are included. All lodging is included. There's a welcome reception in Dublin. We're planning on having just a small welcome reception at the Arlington Hotel. Tours, Wade and I have both given tours. We'll be giving some tours here. We'll also hire tour guides. And the trip also includes all admission for any of our group activities. If you decide that you want to do a countryside tour out of Edinburgh, or if you want to go golfing, those things are not included in the trip. If you want a taxi, or if you want to Uber or whatever, if you want a porter to handle your bags, that's on you. Any other kinds of tours or activities that you choose to do. And of course, like COVID, acts of God are not covered by the trip. Here are the costs. If you want to take a look at this, you can pause the video here, but these are what the costs are for traveling with us in 2021. And for the payment timeline, by mid-January, this is when the deposit is due. The website says December 1, but we don't think that we'll know whether we can go or not until perhaps the turn of the year. And then this is the timeline for paying the rest of it. So we hope that you'll consider joining us for this trip. And for more information and the application to travel, please visit our website at historyofsciencetours.com. Thanks for listening.